All right, and welcome everyone. My name is Holly Lee, and I'm with the University of Virginia Pipelines and Pathways program. And we help individuals in our community gain access to employment at the University of Virginia through opportunities like this, as well as career services. And so we figure any chance for you to get some professional development and or to network with individuals and leaders in our community is a good chance for you. And so thank you all for being here today. Again, we are going to record this, and so if you want to share this with anyone later, it'll be available. And of course, we are going to have an interactive session here, and so definitely feel free to use the chat box if you have questions. It's a small group, so you can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself if you have questions, but we highly encourage you to, if you're thinking of something, definitely share it with us because we can all learn from what other people are thinking. And so, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marianne Assad Doyle, and she is the executive director of our Center for Nonprofit Excellence here in Charlottesville. And so, today she's going to be talking about volunteering in order to grow yourself professionally. And, throughout my career, I have done a lot of volunteerism, and it has definitely helped in terms of, professional growth, but also in meeting people in the community and making connections. So, we thought this would be a good topic, either for yourself and or people you work with if you're a service provider. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marianne. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Great. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to see a few participants here, and I'll look forward to hopefully we can share this out and have more people also get to learn more about volunteerism and how it can impact your career pathway. I'll go ahead and I'll start by sharing my screen and my slides, and then I'll probably turn the slides off in a minute, just to be able to get some introductions from all of you and get to know each of you as well. But whoops, did it open the right thing? Because I feel like I double clicked on the wrong thing. Okay, here it is. I think it's the right thing. So want to talk first a little bit about what the Center for Nonprofit Excellence is. And so, as Holly pointed out, we started out here in the city of Charlottesville, and we continue to serve Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and the greater Charlottesville region, so outlying areas. But we are actually a statewide entity. And so we serve throughout the state of Virginia. We have offices in the northern Piedmont and Warrenton, and we have an office in Abingdon in the Southwest as well, and continuing to expand our services to be able to provide support to all nonprofits, or as many nonprofits as we can, not all, as many nonprofits as we can throughout the state of Virginia. So I'll share a little bit about our vision, mission, and values. So our vision is that we're an equitable, thriving, and just communities powered by healthy nonprofits. And the way that we do that is through our mission. And so we are a champion learning partner and advisor for Virginia nonprofits. So what does that actually mean? So we do a lot of work to support the nonprofit sector, and the sector is pretty big. We probably should start calling it the social sector because that's both the nonprofits who are boots on the ground, but also the funders and foundations and donors who are in that space trying to help finance and support the nonprofit sector. And nonprofits do a lot of work. And so they tend to lean in spaces that government maybe doesn't have capacity to meet the needs of the social needs of the communities. And then also that for-profit, corporate may not have the capacity to meet the needs of the communities. And so nonprofits kind of catch all of everything in the middle. So a lot of you are kind of probably familiar with things like food banks and homeless shelters, but there's a myriad of nonprofits, everything from leadership supporting organizations and development organizations, all the way to providing supports for pets and animals and things like that. So it's everything that's human related, but also everything that, again, both corporate and the government sector maybe just doesn't have capacity to address. So we support that whole sector, right? So, and particularly for the state of Virginia. And we do that by doing things like providing legislative education to legislators and to nonprofits about how to establish relationships with their legislators. We provide information, so we have a tremendous newsletter that really informs the sector once a month on a statewide perspective. So it gives kind of an update on everything that's going on in the sector. We also do regional newsletters for each of the regions that I mentioned as well. And we are a learning partner. So we have a number of trainings, programs, and so forth that we provide, as well as just support systems. So we do circles, so small support systems for folk as well. And we're an advisor. So one of the best kept secrets is as a member of the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, you have access to our staff members who are able to pull on their own expertise, but also gathered and curated expertise that addresses any kind of challenge that you generally might have in the nonprofit sector, from governance to management. And so you can call or email or do an online Ask CNE request as a member to get that one-on-one feedback and get that information. So that's kind of the work that we do. But again, being a statewide entity, we see a little bit of everything. And one of the biggest ways that nonprofits and the social sector generally is powered is by interns and by volunteers both. And so I'm excited to talk to you about volunteerism, and then also in the context of that, thinking around how you develop your career pathway through that volunteerism. Our values include courage, equity, collaboration, and excellence, and we're working really hard to live into each of those values as we continue to support the sector throughout the state, and demonstrating it through our own actions as well as team members in that work. So growing your career through volunteering. I want to talk a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to turn the camera back to all of you, turn the Zoom, sorry, the slides off rather, and go back to all of you to hear a little bit about you. So my career pathway is a lot like a lot of people. It's a winding road. And so what I highlighted here is actually everything that's happened with me from a volunteerism perspective, but also, my career was woven into this. So my first jobs were actually in the hospitality industry. I started in hotels and worked my way up into managerial and director positions in the hotel industry. And while I did that, I was a volunteer at the Braille Institute in California, where I'm from. And so from, I think, the age of 15, I was volunteering at the Braille Institute, but largely working with children and children who were participating in the Braille Institute for supports. As either low vision or blind students, as well as for summer. I spent a lot of time there on the summer doing their summer camps, so supports there as well. And so that's where I started and got a lot of recognition through that work. I was nominated and awarded a Volunteer and People Award. And so, at 18 or 17, I think actually 16, 17, had a radio spot and people were paying attention. And I thought, gosh, well, that's interesting. I didn't know that you would get attention in that way because of your volunteerism. And so it went on my resume and I thought, huh. That's kind of interesting. And next thing I knew, I had a presidential award for my volunteerism. And again, that carried tremendous weight. And I didn't kind of know how all those pieces were going to eventually come together. Later in my career, I started serving on nonprofit boards, and early on, it was kind of interesting because people kind of reached out and asked me to be on these boards and to serve and volunteer, which was great, or on committees as well, which was great. But in the context of my workplace, it wasn't always understood why we do this volunteer work in addition to your to your paycheck work. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then faith-based service. So everything from doing mission work in terms of like homeless shelters, food service, pantries, all that kind of work, clothing pantries, work attire and things like that. So I've been able to lean in the faith-based service space as well. So there's a myriad number of ways that we can serve, and we'll talk about the 5 T's a little bit later. But I'm going to stop share now. And since we're a small group, if you all don't mind just introducing who you are, and if you've experienced volunteer work already, or if you're exploring what it means to you, might share that. If you're currently working in a particular place, then you might share what you're doing there or not. Either way is fine with me, but just whatever you might share about your either current experience with volunteering or what you hope to be able to do. And so I don't know who all the participants are, but I see one that just says iPhone. So I wonder if you might kick us off. And if any of you are in a position where I can't talk, I'm not able to unmute, you can also just put your introduction in the chat as well. So whoever iPhone is, do you mind starting? And if not, I'll move on to Erica. Okay, then I'll move on to Erica. Oh, Laura, are you there? Okay. iPhone, I saw you unmute. Are you able to speak up as well or no? Oh, we might be struggling with technology. And I see Laura, you responded and said, yes, I'm there. Um, oh, so just any volunteer, if you had thoughts around what, Laura, thoughts around how you want to engage as a volunteer, as it prepares you for your career pathway or otherwise, if, if you just wanted to engage in volunteering.
Hi, sorry. Yes, it was a technology issue. My name is Erica. I have just started volunteering. I cannot get a job, and so my next, step is just volunteering, at least doing some good in the meanwhile until I can get a job. I'm hoping that I'll gain some networking or at least life experience from helping and serving.
Great. Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And Laura shared that at this time she wants less attention around her deafness as well as being able to find a job in a hospital. So that's tremendous. Thank you, Laura. Liz, are you available? Oh, we can't hear you though. Sorry. Okay, that sounds good. So Liz is going to type for us. And then is it Trice?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
So I'm sorry I can't put my screen up because I work at Coffee with Correctional. So I have my guys here. So speak up, guys. Hello. So I teach a ready to work class here at Coffee with Correctional Workforce Development. And what you are talking about is something that I preach on all the time in my classes because I've done some work in the Charlottesville area, working at a food pantry, and that's something I strongly believe in. I always say that you don't, when you're out doing volunteer work, one is therapy. It's you giving back to the community. And two, when you're out doing volunteer work, you don't know who you're working beside. Because when you're doing that is that person, when you go for an interview, could be that person who's going to be hiring you. So, and that's something that I always lean into. And the people that we have here today are all about volunteer ism, and also it shows good when you do your speech, your introductory speech, and it always we teach employers they like to see that you're a giver, not always a taker. You know what I mean? So we're glad to be here. So thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So glad you could join us today and glad to hear there's a group of folk that are all engaged in this way as well. Liz was talking about, in terms of her introduction, that she works on a partner team with Holly's team doing career counseling, sends a lot of folks to our website. Thank you, for ideas on ways to volunteer, job listings, and board opportunities and volunteering as a way of giving back. And definitely, as Erica said, it's a way to network, give back, build skills while you're job searching. And while she hasn't volunteered, she's been looking into dog rescue volunteering opportunities. I love that. Thank you, Liz. That's great. And then I also wanted to circle back as well. I know that Laura had asked around volunteering when it comes to patient confidentiality roles. And so, Holly, thank you for responding around connecting to volunteer services. That could be potential, as well as a way to lead to a job for sure. Always an opportunity there. One thing I would just share with you, so one of the hats that I've worn over the years has been in HR. And so one thing that in HR that tends to happen is if there's an opportunity to do so, we evaluate and we'll talk to folk about accommodations for jobs, and try to determine what jobs you can effectively, serve in that doesn't do things like violate patient confidentiality, right? And so once you're kind of there and they're able to work with you, you may be able to have those conversations more readily as well. So there is a way. I just want to encourage you as well that there is always a way. It's just a matter of getting to the point where people will engage with you in those accommodations conversations. So with that, I'm going to switch back over to the presentation slides and we'll continue the conversation. I also want to encourage each of you to feel free to go off mute anytime or raise your hand either way, and just have the freedom to kind of reach out and share your insights or ask your question. You can always use the chat as well. I may ask if Holly doesn't mind to help me manage that part because it's a little tricky with the full when I do the slides on full display, like it's doing to me now as I'm trying to be able to see my slides. Here we go. Okay. So we'll keep going for now. And again, feel free to unmute or raise your hands or put something in the chat as you would like to share. So, volunteering has tremendous value for your career pathway. So, to start with, it builds your skills, right? So, if you want to build your leadership skills or a particular skill set for a particular career pathway, I want to be in communications or I want to be some sort of a leader or I want to go into finance or accounting or anything really, marketing. So, there's any number of different career pathways that you could certainly pursue through your volunteerism. As was said both by, I think, Trace and I'm so sorry that Erica, right? Both of you kind of indicated, gosh, I can network this way. And you're exactly right. It's a tremendous way to build your network. I'll tell you my own personal piece was that I was so young when I started volunteering that I wasn't thinking about the network part of it. And so I never really spent the time to cultivate those relationships. And I had such great opportunity to make great connections through volunteering. So that's always something that I lift up to people, especially when I work with students, but most definitely everyone. Curate, you really steward those relationships, right? They're not necessarily your friend network, they're your professional network. And so they really require just as much care and stewardship as when, getting together with your friends. It fills resume gaps. So, Erica, thank you for lifting up. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not in a role right now, but instead of being in a paid role, I'm in an unpaid role where I'm contributing in a different way. That's a tremendous way to fill your resume gap and kind of gives that narrative and that continuity to your resume. It also helps you rebuild or build confidence, right? And particularly if your job changing, right, or your career changing. And I'm not quite sure if this is what I want to do. And so I'm going to experiment with it here in volunteering. And it gives you the opportunity to kind of build your legs in that particular career pathway. Um, it also helps you just explore those new paths, right? Or even causes. So, if there's something that's really truly aligned with you or what your beliefs or your values, your passion, and you're able to volunteer in that space, it helps in some ways just because, and I think Trice, you might have even said it's almost a bit of therapy, both for yourself as well as maybe for those that you're able to connect with and serve. But it helps you build your confidence in that space as well. Gosh, maybe I can make a career out of whatever that mission might be, or also whatever that skill set might be. So one of the things that I see sometimes is that folk might fall into volunteering, which is totally normal. Certainly, Braille Institute for me was something I fell into. I was 15 years old, so there wasn't a lot of intentionality at that age. But truly, being able to, as adults, really picking something with intention is tremendous. You're so powered and empowered in being able to do that. And so, what aligns with your values? It so happened that for me, with that first volunteer opportunity and then the subsequent opportunities that I was much more intentional about selecting, uh, it happened to align with my values. I love working with kids. That's where I ended up making my career for most of my career was with young people, working in the K-12 space in particular and in higher education. But in addition to that, it might align with kind of your personal values. What do you as a human being really connect with and align with as well? So that's another piece to be thoughtful around is, what do I intentionally want to give back to and what could I in that process of giving back potentially develop a career in? The five T's are a little different from what people usually refer to in nonprofit space as well as in the fundraising space. And so I'll talk for a moment about that. But you'll see them listed here where I ask, can I give my time, talent, treasure, ties, or testimony? And matter of fact, I think I'm missing one there. Time, talent. No, I've got them all. Okay, phew. And so the first three are the ones that you always hear referred to in the nonprofit and fundraising space. We'll talk about, can board members give time, talent, or treasure, or all three? Or we'll talk about, anyone that's in the donor space that way. But we've added ties and testimony at CNE because we find that those are incredibly valuable and important. Those ties are your connections. So, can I volunteer to help with connecting and with networking the nonprofit or the organization that I'm volunteering at? And can I go out into the world and talk about, can I give testimony to the power of that organization and what they do for our community? So, those are the 5 ways that you can give. And I'm sure there are many more, but those are 5 of the ways that you can give to a organization as a volunteer and being thoughtful about, can I actually do it? Can I dedicate it? Right? Because one of the things that I will share with you is that when you volunteer, we count on you as nonprofits, right? So we'll be counting on you to give your time, or we'll be counting on you to give your talent and so forth. And so just something to be thoughtful about there. But what is really important there is it's not only treasure, it is also treasure, right? Treasure is tremendously important. We need funding to really, serve in our communities. And so it's tremendously important. And we also need the other four as well. And so it's not only about money, it is in addition to, right? So hopefully you're able to give your time or give your talent or any of those 5 or maybe multiple aspects of it. A pro tip there, you'll see a few pro tips, but a pro tip there is to challenge yourself with something that's outside of your comfort zone. So by nature, I do a lot of work with curriculum. I do a lot of work with governance. What else? Human resources. So that's what I'm really, really good at. Leadership. So and t at times people have tapped me for committee work and they'll ask me to do something or I'll ask to do something that is, purposefully challenging. So finance committee, for example, might be purposefully and intentionally challenging for me because it allows me to maybe learn differently about what a different organization does in finance or in the way that they manage their funds or the way that they manage their accounting, which actually helps me grow as a leader and as an individual that wants to contribute. But again, it's outside of my comfort zone. It's also kind of nice because you're not doing what you do every day anyway. So that might be another reason to pursue it. And then finally, gosh, maybe I want to pursue a career in finance, or maybe I want to pursue a career in marketing, even if it's not something that I do every day. So just something to be thoughtful about. Not just if you're a career changer, but just also if you're someone who's thinking or pursuing a new career or, embarking on something new for yourself. Be thoughtful around, gosh, is there a way that I can challenge myself? And is there a way that I can fill the gaps as well for the organization? So I wanted to kind of share, I've got 3 slides here, just sharing some ideas of some of the kinds of roles that you can choose to pursue at a nonprofit or really any other organization that's accepting volunteers. Again, I worked in government. We had volunteers all the time. We couldn't have done our work without them. And so there's always opportunities out there for organizations that are looking for volunteers. And then I did kind of briefly say something about internships. I hope that there are more and more paid internships out there, but even if it's an unpaid experience, it's another way to maybe show yourself up. That's how I got my first paid job, was by interning first. And I know that that's a similar story for many people. And so just something to be thoughtful around too is, there are opportunities that are unpaid in corporate as well. But back to nonprofit volunteering or volunteering more generally, these are some of those kinds of skill specific roles that you could pursue. There's many more. None of these lists are exhaustive, but I just wanted to give folks some ideas. Like one that's missing here that I'm looking at right now is a financial, or not financial, I'm sorry, a fundraising associate, right? Having a fundraising intern. We have one right now. So she's tremendous and she's doing great work. And so just thinking around what other volunteers and internships and so forth you might pursue that could help you develop a skill set and also help you build your resume in a particular skill set that you're interested in. These are some of those leadership type roles, and so you might want to be a board member. The board really is the governance arm of the organization and really demonstrates your leadership acumen. You might want to be on a committee. I talked to you a little bit about the finance committee that I was on. So that might be something you want to pursue. You might be an event chair, if they have like a fundraising event that you want to host or be a chair of organizing and supporting. Advocacy is an area that you might, as a policy space, volunteer there and support the work that the organization is doing, drafting positions and so forth. So those are, again, there's many more, but here's something that so just a short list of what you might consider from a leadership perspective to develop your leadership skill. And then the third list is really that public facing. This is what people mostly think about when they think about volunteering for a nonprofit. And so I wanted to start with those first two slides because clearly there are lots of different kinds of opportunities that people don't necessarily always think about. But these are the kind of the more the norm that folk think first about. Oh, I can be a tutor. I can do some mentoring to some folk. I might facilitate a workshop or be on the crisis hotline. I might go to the food bank and serve food. I might, help build a house with habitat. People think about those things first. Again, those are really the outreach or client facing roles, and they're tremendous, and we need that kind of volunteerism. But I also wanted, again, kind of start with there are so many different ways that we lean into volunteerism. And so I hope you'll explore all the options that are available to you. Oh, and a note on the last one, program evaluator. I just have to share with you that nonprofits need support in evaluation. So if that's something that really speaks to you, that might be an area that you think about in particular, especially in this moment and in this season with nonprofits. Evaluation is more and more important than or becoming more and more important than ever. All right, Omar, I see your note here. You want to be involved with Pipeline Pathway and still learning to become familiar with it. Well, this is definitely a great way to familiarize yourself by engaging here, and I'm sure Holly will connect with you more as well. All right, so service to the max. What are you doing and why is it contributing to your career pathway? You're building skills, you're building experience. And so by doing that, we treat it like a job, right? So, I think my dad used to say what you mean and mean what you say. And so thinking around, gosh, if I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up when I say I'm going to show up. I'm going to contribute the way I say I'm going to contribute, and then I'm going to show my leadership, right? And in whatever I've been assigned to do. And with that, really seeking out that feedback, right? And even the mentorship. Again, that's an area that, helps you grow by becoming a volunteer and then helping you build that network, particularly because a lot of folk in your new network will be leaders in your community and can help you make those connections by being a mentor and also sharing their ties with you. And so then I would just ask you, to pause at certain points and think to yourself, what am I learning? What am I learning by having this volunteer experience? Who do I get to meet? And are there ways that I can grow through the experience as well? And as I talked about earlier, how can I stretch as well, right? What ways can I maybe expand my learning beyond my comfort zone? All right. And so really, gosh, okay, so I've done this experience. How does it translate to my career? How do I do this work in a way that actually has an impact on my career pathway? So the first thing you can do, of course, is document it, right? So make sure that you put it on your resume, put it on your LinkedIn. It could be in your experience. Again, we talked about that it can help you build your work history, so that if particularly if you have any gaps, so you can put it in experience. You could put it under leadership if your goal is to really build yourself in that leadership capacity, or any other set of headings. Gosh, if I'm learning about how to become an accountant and I volunteer in accounting, I might put it under accounting experience, for example. Or, the way I do it on my resume is it's under volunteer experience. So I actually, call out that that's my volunteerism. But I would do that differently. Should I have a gap in work history and so forth, I would probably do that differently. But for right now, it's under my volunteer experience heading. And then when you actually sit in an interview, bring it up. I mean, a lot of times we tend to go back and only lean on our paid work experience in our interviews. I strongly recommend you lift up your volunteering because I think that shows that you are willing to contribute and be part of your community in a deep and meaningful way. And it also shows the different kinds of experiences that then you've held because you've leaned in as a volunteer. So it's anything from, hey, in that particular question, this is how I did it as a volunteer, not necessarily in my paid role. Or it could be something to the effect of, let me tell you a little bit about my volunteer experience and how it has really impacted and helped me grow as a leader, as an accountant, as a marketing professional, so forth and so on. Fill in the blank, right? You'll see those verbs that I list in number three, so that language that reflects transferable skills. You'll remember, of course, when you're working with your resume or your LinkedIn profile, using those active verbs are really important. And so if you haven't already done that, I know UVA has some resources. I'm sure Pipelines to Pathways has resources, but really thinking around what are those verbs that I need to lift up and show that I've been actively engaged. And so you'll see some of them there. So what's a transferable skill that I, maybe had gathered from my volunteerism on a particular board, for example? I might have led, I might have coordinated an event, I might have, kept the books. So I might say that I organized and developed the general ledger for an organization, so forth and so on. And then I've got another pro tip here on the bottom left. Make sure, ask other volunteers. You're developing a network and you never know who's standing next to you or working next to you at wherever you choose to volunteer your time. Someone there may be able to give you a recommendation on your LinkedIn profile, based on what they've seen you do in your work at that nonprofit or that organization where you're volunteering. And you never know how much power their recommendation may actually carry in your next job opportunity as well. Accounting is not a job of the future. I don't know, Laura. That's an interesting conversation perhaps to have. I can definitely tell you that, accountants continue to be, there's a huge shortage of accountants. And so they continue to be tapped. In the state of Virginia, I'm watching consulting firms pop up left and right that are doing fractional accounting. And so even though the AI is out there, it's actually not quite good yet. Matter of fact, QuickBooks itself has its own AI and it's terrible, and accountants will tell you to turn it off because it's just so awful. And I will say that in nonprofits, and especially in the nonprofit world and also in government, accounting is incredibly complex. It's not the same as when I did accounting for profit when I was younger. That was pretty straightforward. It was pretty easy. And matter of fact, I'm sure I could, knock it out pretty quickly nowadays with the technology at my fingertips. But I'll tell you that what I've experienced so far, our accrual-based accounting, our gap accounting, all the different rules, restrictions, taxes, all of that. I don't know if it's a job of the future, but it's definitely a job in demand. And I don't think that they're going to go, I don't think accountants are going anywhere for a good long while. Also, there's transferable skills. I should just pause and say, any career pathway that you have worked in, that could be that you perceive, gosh, that's not a career pathway that's going to exist into perpetuity. It doesn't have to. Just think about your skills and what skills you have gathered from that career pathway. They'll transfer. You just have to give it some thought, right? And so just the skill set that you earn through your work experiences, regardless of what that experience may be, just thinking around and that's, again, I saw that Holly put in the chat if you want to reach out for any resume building, any kind of career related support, you might do that. And what I'll share with you is, skill-based resumes are more and more prevalent. And so it's less about the chronology in your resume. It's less about, did I work from this date to this date, and more about what kind of work did I do to support this skill set and this skill set. So just something to be thoughtful around, even if you do something that is, for whatever reason, that career pathway doesn't exist anymore someday, that doesn't mean that your skills aren't transferable. All right, where can I volunteer? The United Way of Charlottesville does a great job of providing us a volunteer hub just for our region here locally. So that's one way to explore volunteer opportunities in this particular region specifically. So I highly recommend to you to go to sevillevolunteer.org. If you aren't here or if you move anywhere else, always look at United Ways. They always have, almost always, I shouldn't say always, that's may not be true somewhere. But generally, United Ways will connect you with volunteerism. Their Day of Caring is something that people tend to know about, and that's a one-day piece, but these kind of continuous pieces are also available through them. At the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, I didn't put this on here, but I'll also share what I think one of the participants, I think Liz kind of brought up, that CNE on our website. We do have a jobs board. We are also building out something that is basically like a matching service for board service. And so you'll see the last thing that I mentioned on here is our board academy. So that's an opportunity in the spring. So it's actually winter to spring. So starting, I think, in late January, we have a cohort program that people go through to learn how to be on a board and how to serve and so forth to kind of prepare yourself for board service. And then through that program, we'll also do some board matching. So it will be soliciting from nonprofit organizations if they need board members, and then that program will actually help you connect or even search through to identify any boards that you want to serve on from a leadership perspective. Catch a Fire is an interesting board. It's kind of like, oh gosh, I'm blanking now, but there's all these wonderful job boards that you can go on now to find not temporary work, to find the kind of the more sporadic work, the project-based work that you can do. And so Catch a Fire kind of fits that bill as well, but it's the volunteer arm. So if I wanted to volunteer my services as a website designer, for example, I can go on Catch a Fire and create a profile and say, I know how to do this and I'll do it for free for a nonprofit in order to gather experience. And what I would recommend to you is as you do that, make sure to have an evaluation process so that you might ask them to put a recommendation on LinkedIn or start a website portfolio and have people give you testimonies that you can put there and then be able to share with future employers as well. So those are a few of the ways that you can definitely both search out jobs as well as search out volunteer opportunities. And thank you, Holly, for putting our job board up there as well. It's actually our #1 hit webpage on our website. So just some final thoughts, and I want to open it up to any questions, is that, yeah, volunteering is a career accelerator. It absolutely can be. And it's a tremendous way to both either start a new career or accelerate a career or even run alongside your career and allow you to diversify in many different ways. I recommend that you say yes to something that means something to you. If I'm going to give of my time, talent, treasure, testimony, or ties, it's got to mean something to me, right? And so if what it means to you is career acceleration and your opportunity to explore your career pathway, that's one way. But it could be that I really believe in doing this particular work for this particular entity or this group of stakeholders or a group of people that I want to whose lives I want to help improve. Or in the case of I think Liz, I want to improve the lives of maybe animals as well. So any number of ways that you feel like you can contribute, do something that's meaningful. Be consistent and intentional. Again, it's a job, right? So being consistent, knowing that people are depending on you, and showing up, and knowing also, selfishly as well, this is your way to give back, but also your way to demonstrate your work, right? I'm an incredible worker, and now you can give testimony on my behalf to folk about the work that I do. And then reflect, network, and document your growth. So reflecting means taking time to actually pause on the work that you do and thinking about it. Networking, don't forget that person working next to you, the person that's supervising you, all that's part of your network. Think about stewarding that network. How do you take care of those relationships and maintain them because they're powerful? And by the way, the further I've gotten in my career, less and less is my career about what jobs I apply for versus what jobs people recommend me for. So just in my time in Charlottesville, every job that I've gotten has been because someone connected me to the job, not because went out and sought it. And document your growth. Again, put it on your resume, put it on your LinkedIn, and so forth. Trice. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Holly. Sorry.
I was just going to say that Mr. Trice has his hand raised.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So I was talking to my team here, and I just let them know I have an idea alert. So as discussed in the beginning, that's something that I truly in all my classes with the Ready to Work, we I always talk about the the importance of doing volunteer work. Matter of fact, one of our my workers here, he is a veteran, and they did a volunteer program for the women's shelter. So, Jay, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so our veterans group, which consists about, anywhere from 40 to 60 guys, depending on who's on the compound at the time, came up with a concept. We wanted to raise money for charity or do some kind of charity type event. So we put it out to the whole facility. We put up flyers and just said, hey, if you want to donate an item from our commissary list, that we approved items that we can buy, to donate to a shelter, turn it into one of the counselors, and then we put it in a box. So we put these boxes out, and they were getting full like every other week. We were entering these boxes, and so once it was all said and done, we collected about $2,000 worth of stuff. And that's it, toothbrushes, any hygiene items, paper, pens, rulers, anything that they could use. And so we put it all together and we gave it to our counselor that's in charge of our group. And he drove it over to the local women's shelter here in Culpeper. And they were very grateful that we had done that. But that's something that we've finally got something done, because we wanted to do this for a long time. And we're trying to get to the next thing now. We want to do a very like a donation drive where you can actually donate money from your account, and they would collect that all and donate it to, like, a nonprofit, or we were thinking about the firefighters up in Idaho. We wanted to donate to maybe up there or something like that, or to Texas flood victims, or whatever's happening right now. We were just trying to see if we could do something like that.
So basically, with that being said, the idea alert is how could we, just an idea, just kind of off the cuff, to develop something, maybe put together a volunteer program, because it's nothing better. I mean, because you mentioned that as a young person, you got involved in it and you saw all the benefits of it, and then, oh, this is greatness. Then you went from there to there to there to there. You know what I mean? So, and that's the same thing that I'm looking at doing, especially just saying with the veteran here, what they did for the community of, volunteer stuff when the guys went around collecting all the veterans and to help out the community. So, and that's the importance of giving. Again, that's therapy, because you are giving back to the community. So, is it any type of programming? This is a different type of setting. It's a different type of setting, but the guys here do want to do volunteer work only within the setting that we have here. Is it anything that you might recommend, that's something that they can kind of get involved in here to help out, so and to start building that what you have, so when they step out, they can step out and continue that in the community?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I'm thinking about off the top of my head that I'm a big believer in grassroots. And so what you described with the veteran group, and thank you to the veterans for your service. I've seen other groups do in a very interesting way from a financial giving perspective, and I wonder if it can be replicated to give in other ways. So I'll tell you about that. But before I do, I'm going to pop a link in the chat to Serve Virginia. And Serve Virginia is a tremendous group that leans into that volunteering as space as well. So there may be opportunities there. And the other one I will share with you is Volunteers of America. And I don't know that I have that link handy, so sorry that I don't have it, but maybe Holly can find it really quickly. But we have kind of the East Coast has its group that's based out of Maryland, and I think in Prince George County in Maryland. And so they're another giving and volunteering group. So there may be, to fit the bill, Trice, there may be some things that already exist in either of those groups as well. But what I'll share with you is what I learned from the funder side, which I thought was fascinating. I'd never heard of it in California, so it was new to me. It's called a giving circle, and I'm sure a lot of people are. And yeah, Eric, I'll talk to you about that as well. I'll address that as well. Good question. The giving circle, because it's grassroots, you have autonomy, and so there are no barriers. So to Erica's point, there's no barriers for anyone that has a record because you're doing it, right? You're just choosing to give. And so what that is, it's in financial terms, but again, maybe stretching and thinking and what other ways we can leverage that. And so they have everything. One of the groups that I talked to is in Richmond, and they have a group and they all throw money into it, and they're all basically board members of this giving circle. And so it doesn't matter if you give, I think they have a minimum of like $20 or 25, whatever. They have a threshold that's a minimum donation, and then you can max out at whatever. But it doesn't matter how much you give, you get one vote. And so what happens is they actually have nonprofits and they have a conversation around giving, and they say, gosh, we really love the mission of blank, right? And we love the work that they're doing for this particular group. And so in our communities. And so then they decide and they rank them together, and then they put in their votes, and that's who they give money to. And maybe they do, three gifts. If they amass a couple $1,000s, they might do three gifts, maybe one for 1,000, one for 500, whatever it looks like. And so that's one way to do it. But I wonder, Trice, if there's a way to kind of organize that same way. So what I like about it is it's democratic. It's not, no one's coming in and saying, well, I gave $5,000. I should get 5 votes, right? So it's really democratic. Everyone has equal value, and then an equal contribution. It provides people with an opportunity to be a leader, but it also provides you with the opportunity to make impact that is barrier free because you're kind of in control of it. So that's kind of a neat way of organizing, but also maybe you can do it in different ways and giving in different ways that go beyond the financial. Maybe it's by contributing talent, for example.
And that's what it's all about, and that's what I'm looking at, because that I want that spirit to build up in them. So when they do get released, again, it's part of their therapy, because I'm all about that. It's part of their therapy. Then they get out into the community, they still go with that and they take it to another level and give back. Because I always say there's people worse off than you are, than I am. And it's always good to give back, and life can always do a 1-2. And if you're on that side, would you want somebody to help you out? But thank you for that information. Then
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also going to type in the chat the Homeboys Network. Trice, are you familiar with them?
So say that again.
The Homeboys Network in California. Are you familiar with them?
No, ma'am, I've not heard. The guy who's a veteran, he's from California. So are you familiar with
That's
that?
from Ventura County, but I've never heard of it.
Okay, so it's real big in LA, and it started out as very, very small. I believe it started out through a mission of a church. I think it was one of the priests of a Catholic church, but I could be totally wrong. And so anyhow, it started out real small, and again, thinking exactly around this, like how do people how do we provide barrier-free access to giving and then barrier-free access to building career pathways? And so this was one way that they plugged into that work was through they created this Homeboys network that, both fueled volunteerism, but eventually they built out a kitchen, which eventually then ended up being contracted. And if I remember correctly, when I visited, I think the county office in LA or some place that was actually government, they had actually subcontracted with the Homeboys Network to cater all of their events, and so that's how big they had gotten. So just a suggestion there to say, and it's called the Homeboys Network because most of the folk there were gang affiliated, and so they were very much not able to access jobs in LA County. There's so many barriers to employment, to be perfectly honest with you. I actually see a little bit less here in Virginia than what I'm used to. But nevertheless, there are barriers to everyone that kind of come across these situations that prevent you from employment. So I would maybe investigate some of that. And then certainly, I know the Fountain Fund is doing tremendous work, and not just in Charlottesville anymore, but they've expanded. I think they're all the way up to Philadelphia. But that's another way that people are kind of investing in, workplace transition, I should say.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Laura, yeah, there are a lot of barriers to people with disabilities. There are a lot of barriers to people with records. Most definitely, there's always going to be folk, I think, that might not, support or believe in, but that doesn't mean that that's everyone. And so I, again, would just strongly recommend volunteering to kind of demonstrate to folk the capacity that you have. Even remember it's an education, and I'm sorry that it falls on all of us that are might be in marginalized communities, whether you're a person of color like me, whether you're someone who has a record, whether you're a person with disabilities. When you come from marginalized communities, sometimes a part of the work is, gosh, I need to show you because maybe you just don't, you don't know. As an employer, you just don't know that I am more than capable to do X job or Y job or this skill and execute on that skill. And so part of it, unfortunately, does fall on us to show rather than tell. And so I'm sorry that that's the case. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's part of the challenge. And so what I would just strongly encourage to you, Laura, just jump into an opportunity to volunteer and demonstrate how incredible your skill set is. And then maybe then at some point, part of your mission maybe to educate around accommodations for people with disabilities to make sure that people better understand the community and the tremendous value that they offer to all of us in the workplace and beyond. Are there any other questions or thoughts? Well, Holly, I was worried that I wouldn't have enough, and here we are, it's 12:55. That's tremendous.
Definitely some great engagement here. I'm glad people kind of just jumped in there and asked questions because really volunteerism, not only, for professional growth, but like Laura was saying, getting your foot in the door with an organization. And you mentioned internships, which are often sometimes unpaid and they can lead to job opportunities as well. So I would just encourage folks to, consider it and reach out to us because we have a lot of great connections in the Charlottesville community where we could possibly get you connected.
Absolutely. And again, reach out to CNE if you have questions about ways that you want to engage with the nonprofit sector in this community or outside in the state of Virginia. And I hope that you all take advantage of any opportunities that you have that are presented as well through any of the resources that I provided, United Way, and again, Serve Virginia, all of these other opportunities through the state of Virginia. It was a pleasure being able to present and being with you all today.
Marianne, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it, your expertise and time today. Marianne is the executive director of the CNE, so she has all the answers about about this topic. So thank you all for being here today. Again, feel free to reach out to Pipelines and Pathways at UVA Pipelines at virginia.edu, and we can help you with your career journey at the university and also with our community partners because a lot of the folks that you'll see on the jobs board and the volunteer list in the area are people that we work with on a regular basis. And so sometimes that connection and helping you get in touch with someone face to face or one on one with an organization in our area makes a big difference. So thank you again so much, Marianne, and thank you all for being with us today. Again, this was recorded and we will send the link out to you. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Take care.